Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fall. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
We believe that if we do it efficiently and effectively, it will be one that the public will understand and will support.
Yep.
If the public ever feels that we're being political with this, we will have done a tremendous harm to the country, to the Constitution, and to the people that we are sworn to serve.
But it sounds like you think that the president will be impeached, or at least proceedings will begin in the House at some point, but just not right now.
Yes, exactly what I feel. I think we've already begun it. We've got all of these committees doing their work. We're having hearings. We've already won 2 court cases, and there are other cases that are still to be determined. So why should we get out in front of this process? Why don't we just continue to go along? And we are winning this issue. Why should we go out and make missteps and cause us to lose a court decision that will have people saying, why didn't you take your time? Why did you get out in front of this? It's kind of interesting to me as I talk to people, when you ask them what they think we ought to do, they agree with what we're doing. Mm-hmm. It's just that emotionally, they would like to see something done and see it done quicker. But people want us to be effective with what we do.
All right, so hearings will begin next Monday. That is a gimme. That's so far a gimme. Okay, that's what just broke. Bloomberg News reported that at about an hour ago. And according to what they're reporting, it will be John Dean will start it off, and then they will have various prosecutors testify. They will have law enforcement officials testify. They will have legal experts testify about the impeachable offenses that that Trump committed. So it's gonna begin. It's gonna begin next Monday. The Trump administration has, as of Friday, defied 2 court orders, both of them ordered by Judge Emmett Sullivan. Emmett Sullivan, if you don't remember, he's the sentencing judge for Michael Flynn. And he is the judge that told Michael Flynn that he had sold out his country, right? And so Emmett Sullivan ordered that the transcripts of Flynn's conversations between Michael Flynn and the Russian ambassador Sergei Kislyak be made public. That was in response to a Washington Post case. The Washington Post actually filed a motion seeking a release of redacted and sealed documents in Michael Flynn's case. Okay, and Emmett Sullivan ordered that those transcripts and those conversations, those recordings, be made public so we could hear them. He also ordered, and this was 2 weeks ago, he gave them 2 weeks to comply with the order. He also ordered that a unredacted copy of the Mueller report be furnished to his court. And the White House has refused the court orders. You know what they did? They turned around, they told Judge Sullivan. Now remember, this is a guy who has a thing. He's not a prosecutor's friend. He's kind of a guy that always questions prosecutors' heavy hand and iron fist and blah, blah. And now he's telling these prosecutors that they have to turn over these documents. And they're not doing it. The White House instead, the prosecutors at the Department of Justice, turned around and had the nerve to tell Judge Sullivan, Emmett Sullivan, that his request to make public the unredacted Mueller report and to provide the transcripts and voice recordings of Michael Flynn talking to Sergei Kislyak, they said they're not relevant. They're not relevant. Well, I got news for you. They made that case already in front of the judge. The judge already heard that argument. He rejected it and ordered that they release. And now they're turning around and telling him Well, we made the argument, and just because you rejected it doesn't mean we have to follow your court order. Wrong. If you disagree with a judge, or a judge orders you to produce something, and you disagree with that order, you have to go to a higher court. You can't lecture the judge that ordered after hearing your arguments and viewing your evidence and rejecting your argument and rejecting your evidence. You can't tell him, we're not going to comply with your court order because we still think X. We still think it's irrelevant. You don't get to do that in America. And so this is a constitutional crisis because Emmett Sullivan 2 weeks ago gave them until last Friday to give him an unredacted version of the Mueller report and to release and make public the transcripts and the voicemails and the voice recordings between Michael Flynn, who he actually said, Judge Sullivan said that Michael Flynn sold out his country. Now, don't you want to know what prompted him to say to Michael Flynn, you sold out your country? And the White House goes, we don't have to listen to you. We don't have to listen to you. The only thing that we have seen is a transcript, one transcript, and that was from Trump's lawyer, Dowd, right? What's his name? Dowd, John Dowd, to Flynn's attorney, Kellner, Michael Kellner. And there was a voicemail left on Kellner's answering machine on behalf of Trump talking to Flynn through the lawyers, right? And so John Dowd, and the only reason why we got this transcript is because it was pretty much in the Mueller report anyway. You could read it in the Mueller report. And what the voicemail said was, this is Trump's attorney, John Dowd. He's calling Flynn's attorney, Kellner, and he says, you know, I understand your situation, but let me see if I can state it in starker terms. If there's information that implicates the president, then we've got a national security issue. So, you know, we need some kind of heads up. Just for the sake of protecting all of our interests, if we can, without you having to give up any confidential information, remember what we've always said about the president and his feelings towards Flynn, and all that still remains. Now, the White House's position is that is not improper to contact Flynn and float a pardon and say that if he doesn't cooperate, which is what he's saying there, you know, if you're going to tell something to the court that's a national security, you know, you really need to tell us what you're going to tell them. And just remember, if you decide not to tell them what you're going to tell them and you tell us instead, we still love you. We have very warm feelings, right? That is all we got. So they are in defiance of a court order. And so this is now a constitutional crisis. Not that you would ever know it from the news coverage of what happened on Friday. Now, I will say the alternate universe of Fox News on Friday when there was a shooting, and just to prove that we can legislate and prosecute at the same time, we did pass gun legislation. H.R. 8 is an amazing, start. It's not everything. Nothing will ever be everything, but it's something. And, the White House goes out on the Sunday shows and starts to imply to the people of these United States that there is no legislation that the Senate could vote on, that it's too soon to even talk about gun legislation, which is just complete and utter bullcrap.
Does the president believe there's a role for the federal government here to preventing these mass shootings?
Let's start with this. And every time, and I saw the lead-in you did with Mr. Williams, and it seems like you're right. We have too many of these shootings, and every time the first thing we talk about is politics. And the mourning crisis period hasn't even stopped yet, let alone the healing process. So let's.
That's because we have so many of them that the mourning process starts. The healing process can't conclude, and then we have another one in the middle of the mourning process. And isn't he implying to you that there is no legislation available to vote on? I mean, what is this with the lies to the American people?
Let's not get too deep into politics too soon. Let's think about the families.
It's not about politics. This is a policy question.
So let's talk about policy, and the policy is enforcement and what we're already doing. What's been lost in the last couple of years is the fact that this administration banned bump stocks. Mm-hmm. We signed a piece of legislation that fixed the background checks. Now, we don't know if background checks played a role here, but
we got to learn more about the silencer situation. You heard Pete about the silencer situation. That seems like a legitimate concern.
Right, but keep in mind, I'm more familiar with the situation in Charleston several years ago where a guy walks into a church and shot my desk mate in the South Carolina Senate. That was where the background check system let us all down. And we fixed that last year with this administration on a bipartisan basis. So there are things that the government can do, and there's things this government is doing, but we're never going to protect everybody against everybody who is deranged, insane. I don't know what the shooter's motivation was. We talked about that before. So you're never going to make everything perfectly safe.
Nobody thinks we will ever be able to make everything perfectly safe unless you live in a bubble, a hermetically sealed bubble. But we do think that people need to have it made harder to get a freaking military weapon. We should ban high-capacity magazines and assault weapons, and the whole issue of silencers now and suppressors is another one. This guy got all his guns legally. We don't know why he shot up his workplace, but we know he got them legally. Don't you think that's a problem?
Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.